God.
There you go. We are live. Ha ha.
Here we
So
are.
Some people may join us, and I was just explaining before we went live on the call that if you do join us, we will be keeping this to around 40 minutes. So jump in with questions at the end or drop them in the chat box at the bottom. Anyway, this is Laura Applewhite. I hopefully am going to be taking a real back seat here and handing over to Laura, who can share, her story and some great advice for women who, unfortunately, there are too many of, who experience what I'll describe as premature menopause or menopausal symptoms because of hysterectomy. And beyond that, I know nothing other than my mother went through it. So I might, share a bit of stories about that. Anyway, Laura, over to you. Do you want to tell us about what you're doing and why, or anything you want to tell us, frankly?
Yes. Shirley, thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me on. Well, for having this group as well, for women suffering from anxiety related to their menopause. And I thought it was really kind of you to invite me on as well, because what we do in the world is very, very similar. So I help women heal after their hysterectomy. I'm a hysterectomy coach. So what that means really is that I help women heal their bodies, hearts and souls after a hysterectomy. Now, I did mention before that the signal isn't great, so hopefully you can still hear me. It's frozen my end, so I'm just going to keep going. But if at any point you can't hear me, then hopefully that will all come up. But yes, so a little bit about me and my journey. Oh, amazing, great, thank you. A little bit about me and my journey. I am now 44. I had my hysterectomy when I was 42, and that really followed at least 10 years of horrific periods. I won't go into the long and drawn out version, which I have spoken about really quite openly now, but it was getting to the point where I was not able to leave the house for 2 days of my cycle, and I was on the pill, and the pill that I was on, I was able to manage my period and shift it to the weekends, so that for 2 days out of every month I would just stay in, because it was getting to the point where I couldn't go out for fear of having embarrassing accidents, and it's no way to live, really. It's no way to live. And so that is briefly why I had a hysterectomy. Those symptoms were caused by fibroids. When I had my initial treatment, which was an ablation, it also transpired that I had a prolapsed womb as well. And the ablation that I had, unfortunately, didn't help.
Oh, you've frozen now. Hold on. I don't know if you're going to get this message. So for anyone that's still watching, this is still being recorded. You've got me. Oh, there we are. Ah, Pamela has joined us. Nice. Laura, you've gone silent again.
Oh, there we are. Sorry about that. Sorry, I think it's my signal. I do apologise. Can you hear me okay?
Don't worry. Yeah. So Pam's just joined us, or I think she has. I just let her in, so hopefully she's here.
Amazing.
Yeah, brilliant. She's here. So let's just, Pamela, we're just sharing what Laura's sharing her story. So jump.
Do you know what? I'm gonna leave and come back in on 4G. I'm sorry about this.
No, don't worry. I'll have a quick chat with Pamela if she doesn't mind. Pamela, do you mind having a chat?
No, that's okay.
Oh, it's very nice to chat with you. Yeah, technology as ever is.
I just remembered. I'd forgotten.
Oh no, it's really nice to have you here. So Laura was just sharing while she's getting back in again. She's obviously got a tech problem and she keeps getting a free screen. But but she's sharing her story because her menopause journey started with hysterectomy, so that's where the focus of her attention is, and she's just talking about how it came about that she ended up having hysterectomy, and so you haven't missed much.
Okie doke.
Anyway, nice to see you.
Thank you. I've looked a little bit more into stuff that's going on with menopause.
Yeah.
Partly because things started to get a bit horrible for me in my mid to late 40s. I'm now 55.
Yeah.
But I had hydrocephalus when I was 7 months old, so I've got all the stuff of migraines and I eventually went to see the doctor not long after my 50th birthday and said, I'm actually feeling really crap. He said, you're not moaning, you're feeling crap and tired and headaches and everything because you're prone to it, and that's just part of it. And I've got the unfortunate thing that my mum kept on going till she was 60, and I'm thinking another 5 years, so this is rubbish.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But it's accepting where you are and just sort of, and that's the hard thing, is all the mindset stuff.
Oh, completely. Well, that's
actually listening to people and seeing what other people are doing is really helpful.
Good. Well, thank you. We'll pick it up. Maybe you might want to come and chat with me sometime on the cafe, but maybe not. I don't want to put you on the spot here. Laura's back in. So
I'm back. I'm sorry, I'm on the 4G now, so hopefully this is a lot better. So thank you for your patience. I'm really sorry about that.
No problem. Right. So Laura, you were having these horrendous periods, and clearly, so the GPs, that was their offering to you was, right, have it all cut out.
Have it all removed. And I was desperate. And this is what happens when I speak to a lot of women now in the work that I do, is you're absolutely desperate and you're like, yes, take it all away, take it all. I do not need my reproductive system. I do not need organs. And at the same time, you're terrified because it's a terrifying surgery to have. It is. So for me, other than the physical recovery, I needed a deep healing within myself as well, because there was a lot of stuff from before. I don't like to use the word trauma lightly, but it just seems to be the word that fits. A lot of us have trauma from the past, and for me it took my hysterectomy to really force me to face a lot of things and start healing from those. So not only from my hysterectomy, but from all of the shit, for want of a better word, from before.
It's always a good word, that one. Yeah. So was it a shock to you? So obviously to my awareness, I think all the women I speak to, and certainly the women in this group, and in most groups online and anywhere you go, if you just took menopause without the hysterectomy induced menopause, although we know it'll happen at some point, it's like a total shock. No one warns us what we might be expecting, and then one day we, as you said, we feel shit. So how did that transpire for you? That must have been even more of a shock.
Yeah, and you're right. It's you're shocked and you're scared both at the same time, and at the same time you're begging, please remove these major organs from my body. I can't carry on like I am. I don't know if you caught before it was cutting out, but I was having to stay in like 2 days a month. And for a while I was like, oh, I just have to stay in 2 days a month, that's okay. But my auntie was the one that said, are you maladapting? Is this really okay? And really, looking back, that's part of one of my kind of coping mechanisms, was it was just carry on, push. Don't worry about these massive problems that you're dealing with. It's okay. You can just carry on being exhausted, carry on being anemic, carry on not having sex with your husband because you haven't got any energy for anything apart from everything absolutely critical. But actually, when you take a minute and you think about it, all of those things aren't really okay. And I really had to reconnect with my body and this is why I say I help women heal their bodies, hearts and souls, because that's what I needed as part of my hysterectomy recovery. I needed to heal on a very, very deep level. So yeah, whilst it's a shock, it's also necessary, and it's balancing all of those competing requirements.
So can I ask you a question? How old were you when this happened and you had the hysterectomy? You may have said earlier.
Yeah, I was 42 when I had my hysterectomy, and I'm 44 now.
Right, so still right slap bang in the middle of something.
Yeah. And so I retained my ovaries as well, so sort of keeping it on point for you and the work that you do with women. I retained my ovaries, and I felt that was a good choice, because hopefully I wouldn't go into menopause. But little did I know at the time, because one of the questions I didn't know at the time to ask was, when might I go into menopause? And what I know now is usually within about 2 years after your hysterectomy, even if you retain your ovaries, you may well go into menopause. And that's about where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I started having symptoms of that about a year ago.
Do you know, and listening to you talk, and I'm sorry, but hey, we're having a conversation, and please make sure you get everything out. But listening to you is so interesting to me, because I had really horrendous periods before menopause, but they became that bad that you're describing once I was in perimenopause, as they now call it. I hate the labels, but anyway, here we are. We know what we're talking about. But it got considerably worse, and it's only with hindsight that I've begun to think, did that get worse? I mean, way before I was properly in perimenopause, I'm talking back in my 30s, I went through some really bad times, and the hormones can start shifting, and 15 years before you're in a place where you recognize you're in menopause. Is that something that you've thought about, or I mean, what was your experience there? Did you think that maybe some of that was menopause or perimenopause?
It may well have been. And it's interesting to me now as well that Dr. Louise Newson really wants menopause to be rebranded as a hormone imbalance issue. And I think that would be a really good idea, because it doesn't mean, because I always just thought, and I see it now as well with other women, menopause is an old woman's problem. I'll think about that when I get there. But you can be suffering from menopausal symptoms. Some teenagers get this. And anything before 40 is considered early menopause, isn't it? So if you think about it, one of my friends mentioned this to me recently, and I was like, yeah, I accept that, actually, that almost as soon as you start having your periods, you're almost like on a slow decline potentially towards menopause. And so learn about it earlier and look out for the symptoms. Wouldn't that be amazing? Because, for example, anxiety, low libido, hair loss, itchy skin, joint pain. I didn't know. I thought menopause was hot flushes.
I think we all did.
I didn't know all of the other things that it could be.
And you also get caught in that catch-22, which I'm increasingly blathering on about. So I differ slightly from Louise Newson, because obviously she's GP, and we're all going to share our version, and it's not that any of them are wrong, we're just coming from different perspectives, but I think there's a slight danger in that we pathologize menopause and we turn it into there we are, that woman over there, she's a little bit sick, she's got a hormonal imbalance, or she's menopausal. It's like women always seem to, we have to carry a label that says there's something deficient in us. And this book here, sorry, I didn't write this, by the way. Have you seen this book?
I haven't, but I'm going to get it.
The Menopause Manifesto. This is by Dr. Jen Gunter, who's an American gynecologist, and it's quite hard-hitting, but it goes into all the details of the ins and outs of what can be caused. But I think one of the other key elements that gets wrapped up, and you can't tell the difference, like, is this menopause or is not menopause, is that anxiety can trigger some of the events that are menopausal and vice versa.
Yes, so much. Yes. Now, I had this just last week. I don't know if you saw any of my posts about it, but because I've been trying to get appropriate advice and treatment from the doctor about my menopausal symptoms, and I won't, but it's been a long time, and I've been wrestling with the GP about it. But something I've noticed, and I'm so glad you said that, Shirley, because something I've noticed is as I was getting really stressed and wound up, I called it, I was taking a dip in the stress pool, because it was a plunge pool as well, because I was like, right. I noticed my symptoms really got worse.
Yeah.
And so my symptoms, some of them, and I have lots more than this, but the ones that really jumped out at me last week, my eyes got really dry. I got that fatigue. My palpitations would get worse. So it's which happens first, the menopause symptoms or the stress?
Yeah.
So, and that's really important that you say that, because yes, I want to explore HRT, and I've got some already, and I've started to take it, but I want to know what I'm doing first before I start on that journey properly. But yes, I want the treatment if it's the right treatment for me. And at the same time, what can I do within myself to manage my own symptoms, and not, like you say, blame everything, be like, yes, it's all because of the menopause. Now, if I get this treatment, everything will be fine. No. If I can take responsibility for my own health and well-being, I will be in a better place.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you said that.
Yeah, I think that's so valid, because blaming something, it does make us very disempowered. I mean, well, okay, there's nothing I can do then. I'll just lie here for the next 10 years and feel shit, as you say. And you've probably heard my story before. I went through that feeling for, I lose count. I think, I don't know, was it 5 years? Was it 8 years? Who knows? And if I go back to what you described, and when the periods started getting bad, crikey, that's a long time. Now, I didn't start feeling depressed and miserable and anxious. Well, I only had 5 years of that. Oh, that's nothing, is it? But
women suffer. We suffer like that. No. Let's stop thinking like that. That's what I'm talking to my clients about.
Yeah, but you describing your frustration with your GP, I think that's so common, that you want to be empowered, but you're also potentially on the floor with your energy, with your confidence, with your self-esteem, and it is so easy to just go, oh, just roll over me, that's fine, okay, can't fight this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, because I've been waiting now for a referral. It was all really quite, I hate using the word frustration, but I can't think of another word. But so I was referred to the specialist in January for advice on HRT, because my doctor, and I don't want to speak badly about people, but I am going to speak plainly, asked me when I went to her and said that I was having menopausal symptoms. She asked me if I was still having periods, and as soon as she said that, I was like, you're asking me when I've had a hysterectomy if I'm still having periods, and I'm coming to you for help and advice. Anyway, I like simmered down a little bit on that. She wasn't sure whether or not to prescribe me HRT, because my mum had breast cancer and she wasn't comfortable with doing so. So she's referred me to the hospital. Fast forward 6 months, and the hospital have written back to the GP to say they don't need to see me, and that because of the symptoms that I'm having, I should just have HRT. So a little bit of a tussle with the doctor's surgery, and a doctor phoned me last week, a new doctor, and just wanted to prescribe me HRT with no advice. And I don't personally think that is right. So I'm pushing back with them again. Yes, I know some information, quite a lot of information probably, about HRT and menopause and the symptoms and long-term risks and benefits. And at the same time, it's important for me to make sure that I'm getting the correct support, information and advice from a medical professional so that I can make my own decisions. So you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's important to have the whole 360, isn't it?
Yes, I think we're a long way from having that, but yes, it's pushing in the right direction. If we keep demanding it, then one day, maybe in the future generations may get it. I don't think it will be ours somehow, but you never know. So you've taken this stance of empowering yourself, you know, and setting out your stall, much like me, and going, okay, right, I'm struggling with this, I want to feel empowered, and I can help other women with that empowerment. So what got you to that point, and how are you using that sort of?
So, well, going back to the deep healing that I needed for my body, heart and soul, I just, because I had to heal from such a lot from the past, and like I said, I don't like to overuse the word trauma, but I can't think of a better one. There's a lot of trauma in my life that I had to heal from, and I don't always refer to, I don't want it to always sound like trauma is always like you've had some sort of abuse or you've suffered. It might be that, but also it's as simple sometimes as your parents had their own trauma and they didn't necessarily know how to empower you as a child, if you see what I mean. So I had to heal, and I had to almost reparent myself when I was recovering from my hysterectomy. And then as I came out of it, I started to feel like, I started to ask the question, why are there so many women who are begging to have a hysterectomy, begging to have their major organs removed, and yet they're going into the surgery just like I did, without all of the information of, for example, what hysterectomy am I having, which organs are being removed, why is that the correct procedure for me, how does that impact me in the long term, because really we want to be able to be well after a hysterectomy, not in the short term, but for the long term as well. So, you know, I had a vaginal hysterectomy, my cervix was removed, I kept my ovaries. Honestly, the reason why I had that surgery was because that's the surgery I was told that I was having, and that was all I needed to know. I have a slight issue with that, really, now looking back, because there's like I think there's about 7 different types of hysterectomy procedure that you can have, and it's not us telling our surgeons, no, we want this particular one because this is what we want. It's about understanding which one has been offered to you, why has that one been offered to you, and for example, if you wanted to keep your ovaries, or you wanted to keep your cervix, or you wanted to have both of those removed, is that the best option for you for the long term? And it's about having the understanding within yourself, and making the decisions from an empowered place, rather than I'm absolutely on the floor with my energy levels, my fatigue, my life is suffering, I'm being told I'm going to have a hysterectomy, I'm just going to walk blindly into the surgery and just take whatever is given. I don't feel it's right, and this is not me criticizing the medical profession at all. They do a wonderful job, and that's not what I'm about, but it's about it's actually very important for women to understand what's happening with their bodies.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And I'm sorry, I wish I'd written this book. I think I posted, I wish I'd written this book. But she addresses stuff like that in this book.
Oh, really? Amazing.
Yeah, and her barometer for, does this clinically stack up? You know, does this sound like sound guidance for anything? Is replace the word you're using as if it's a man's body. So, you know, things like, what we recommend is you have your testicles removed. Like, that generally doesn't happen. You know, the best thing is to have them whipped off. It doesn't happen. And yet with women, it's like, oh, okay, just remove everything.
They're begging for it to be removed, and then just being, oh, okay, that's the one, off we go.
Yeah. But I love that. I think, because my view is that it is core what you said about the using this as an empowering moment. You know, doesn't make it easy at all. But what you've described, that you've experienced, and you know, probably most of the women in this group, which is why I set it up, is I can't describe it any better than it's like a fast moving vehicle hitting a wall. Like you just hit menopause or some version of it, and you've got two choices. You either just smack into it and I go, oh my goodness, you just reel in the wreckage of it and wait for people to rescue you, which they may or may not, or you use that where you talked about trauma to say, what is this? And this is where I use it as an empowering thing. What is this giving me an opportunity to look at in my life and how I live it? That says it could be so much better. You know, this could become, I'm not feeling it right now, but this could become a gift that I will at some point be able to look back on and go, thank goodness for that. Because if we fight it, then we make it worse. That's like two speeding cars then. And it's not about giving in, it's about taking control and going, okay, right, what do I need to do?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm, even before I say this, I'm 100% confident that you teach this and you give this tool and understanding to the women that you support. And one of the things I had to learn, and now one of the things I pass on to the women that I support, is often the balance between our heads and our hearts is just almost the wrong way around. And I'm not saying that we have to turn our heads off at all. Of course, our heads and our brains are important. They are important, don't get me wrong. But we're so used to, in this day and age now, just thinking our way out of all of the problems. And our heads are, this was true for me and it's true for my clients, our heads are exhausted, overwhelmed, overrun, all the rest of it. And if we could just turn the notch down a few times, and maybe a few times again after that, and just let our hearts have a bit more of a say, often we already know what we want and what we need, but we're just our heads are so tired and trying to think our ways out of problems, and our heads are actually much more, I don't want to say intelligent, but I can't think of a better word. Our heads are much more, our hearts are much more intelligent.
I totally agree with you, and I think it comes from, and that's why it can be so hard, and I get that kind of brain fog. It's almost like, rather than a brain fog, it's almost like a throat frog. I like the frog thing.
Throat frog. I like
so
it.
It's blocking, like this fog is all around here, and you can't connect with what you know, because you've never been taught to trust that, you know, as women. What do we know? And even in this enlightened world, we still, as a rule, you know, we do play the game of fitting in. We do play the game of taking the easy route of, oh, okay, let's not rock the boat. You know, and most of us, even those of us that are quite outspoken, will still play that more often than not.
Yeah.
And so we're not accustomed to listening or hearing what the hell it is that is right for us. We can't. It's like, I like the way you talked about turning it up, like it's
it's
and
waiting.
I can't hear it because it's my brain's going la 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 la.
Yeah. You know, when you lie in bed and your thoughts are like, oh, it's because it's just overworked and over. It's like the employee in the factory that just does everything. It's just knackered. Yeah.
So what kind of things do you share with your clients? You know, there's some simple things you could share with us that people in the group might benefit from.
So a lot of the healing work I did, and a lot of the things that I help my clients with are well, I suppose if we start with one of the biggest problems that I had when I was recovering from my hysterectomy was, and this is this head heart thing, was that I didn't know how to rest. And this sounds crazy to some people when I talk about it, because they're like, what do you mean you didn't know how to rest? It's easy, you just sit down and put your feet up. But I had no idea. Like, I was always like, oh, I'll just do this. Oh, tomorrow I'll walk around the block, and tomorrow I'll hoover, or tomorrow I'll clear out the cupboards. And my husband was like, no, you need to stop. You're resting for 2 weeks. And I was like, no, what? I can't do that. No, it's just because I'd never really done it before. And you know, I have to be honest as well and say that it's one of the things I still have to work on now. Like, I'm not like, oh yeah, now I know how to rest and I'm permanently walking around in a Zen cloud. No, sometimes I still have to catch myself and be like, you need to take a break. You need to just be who you are and stop doing all the things. And I think that is related to like a bit of a trauma response as well. And like I said, I hate to overuse it, but I can't think of a better word. It's always because I was so used to pushing through, and you know, any pain, any sign of weakness, just push on, keep going, just pull your socks up, stiff upper lip, you can do this. And it's almost like a badge of honor, like, I'm tough because I can keep going through all of this. But no, actually, sometimes, often, in fact, resting and stopping and centering is what's important. So one of the tools that I use with myself, and now I use with my clients, is breathing exercises. And there's a variety of different ways. There's loads and loads of different breathing exercises that you can do, and meditations as well, if that's something that you enjoy. But one of them is just box breathing. And that's the one where you breathe in and out around the square. And why that's good is because, and it doesn't work straight away, you can't just switch your head off, and that's not what we're trying to do, but it's just switching it back a few notches. But it's putting you back in your body, because sometimes you can feel, well, you know how you feel because of how you feel, but when you're being led by your head, you can't always feel what's going on in your body.
Yeah, good point.
So
I want to explain that box breathing quickly for anyone that doesn't understand what you mean by the box breathing.
Yeah, so it's just if you go sort of in 4, and like imagine drawing a square, out 4, and then in 4. I always struggle to talk and do this as well. And out 4, and just do that. And whilst you're breathing in and out, just focusing on your breathing, and not ignoring your head, but switching back to your breath when your thoughts come on. and just, you know, acknowledging that they're there, because if you try and fight with them and, you know, no, I'm not, then you're, you know, you're still engaging in the thoughts and in the head. So it's always just coming back to the breath. And it's not easy when you haven't done it before. It took me a long time to do it, and if my head gets a bit overrun now, like, I still, you know, it takes a while to get back in your body, but it's important. So I mean, there's so many breath works that you can do, but breathing and feeling what's in your body is very, very important.
I thank you for sharing that, because I think, you know, sometimes I teach people that some of these are small techniques. They're kind of little add-ons based on where someone is. That's not the core of my work, but I know that for many people it's really powerful. And I really liked when you talked about when you use that tiny little phrase that and then move past, but be who you are.
Yeah,
that is a huge phrase, just sitting in the middle of what you just said. Because I think this is so much about identity, that it is, when, you know, when I talk about that, it becomes an opportunity. It becomes an opportunity which is both scary and liberating. That if you embrace it and you finally go, okay, I give myself permission to figure out who the hell I am, what the hell I want, and actually take some steps towards being that, even if you have no idea to begin with, which you wouldn't, because your head is, do the cleaning, do this, do that. But, you know, you give people hope, that because there are loads of women, and I work with some of them, like exactly the way you described. They're so, I got to do this, got to do that, got to do, because they think that distracts them from the thinking that makes them sad or anxious, and it doesn't. And
that's it. And it's exactly what you said. It's because they think, and whatever the word they think, because they're still up here. And this is no judgment and no criticism, because I've been there. I'm still there now sometimes, but it's always about returning back, catching yourself and returning back as much as you can, because you're so much more powerful when you live here than when you live here. And I love the way that you put that as well, actually, Shirley, because and you're right, it was a small thing, and then it was like wrapped up around lots of gift, and it was wrapped around lots of other stuff. But yeah, who we are, who we is, it's Susie Ashworth that says who we be. That's what's important. It's who we be. And it's so important. And you know, we talk about, well, I've spoken about
we can still hear you. We did lose a moment, but
it was my phone going on low power mode, which is fine. I'll plug it in a minute. But you know, the inability to rest, that being a trauma response, is the codependency. And I use that word, and I know, like, sometimes it's a bit, when people hear it, it's a bit ouchy, but it's quite common for people to be really codependent, and entire families to be really codependent as well. So, for example, when some of the women that I help, when they need to recover after their hysterectomy, one of the first things they think about is, but what about my kids? What about my husband? What about my dog? Hang on a minute. Back up. What about you? What about you first? They're not, it's not that they're not important, but what about you? So it's that as well. So
I love that, and I think that's really vital, because if we don't do that, what builds up is resentment and guilt, which doesn't help you, and it sure as hell doesn't help them either, because people know, you know, that's where we do pick up on one of those, you know, the whole energy of what we're feeling. People know, so you can smile and go, oh, that's all right, love, you know, oh no, I don't mind doing that, I don't mind, but ultimately, you know, I had a mother that did that her whole life, and I knew it felt like martyrdom, and I wanted her to stop doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And she never did, sadly. Anyway, let's take, I'm just wondering, as we've got Pam here, whether you want to ask any questions.
Yeah, go for it, Pam.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you don't, Pam, just that's fine. And you can put them in the chat, or
you can ask later as well if you'd like.
Not really. It's just when you were saying about making time for yourself and all that kind of thing, that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. It's simple, but it's not easy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have, my kids are in their 20s, and I was very privileged. I stayed home with them. I've done a lot of stuff while being at home. And so now they've moved away. They moved away when they went to university and all this kind of thing. And it's, so what do you do with your time? And I'm thinking, that's where I shrink into a corner and say, I don't do anything. And then up pops my husband and says, but you do this for that person, and that for that person, and that for that person. And you're saying, because you don't earn money, you do nothing. And that's not where your value is based. That's why I say I've got an absolutely amazing husband.
Yeah.
But it's learning to sort of say, I'm valuable because I do this, this, and this, and it's not all about earning money.
Yeah. And it's really interesting what you say there as well, because it reminds me of something that I read in Darren Brown's book, and it's called Happiness. It's a bit of a masterpiece, actually. And I thought it was going to be one of the last self-help books I ever read, but that didn't turn out to be the case. But anyway, he says, it's really interesting what you said there, Pablo, was, and it reminded me of the book, because he always says that when you meet people, sometimes one of the first questions that you ask is, what do you do for a living? As if that's like one of the most important things about you. And it actually is one of the least important things about you, really. What do you do to earn money isn't really the most important thing about you as a person, is it? It's who are you at your source? Who are you? That is one of the most important things. So it's about learning that value that's in you, that's not related to money, really, and not related to status. And
that's something that COVID has highlighted. Because for me, I did a lot of volunteer stuff, and of course all that stopped. And to start with, I thought, I'm not having migraines, which was amazing. And then all of a sudden things went, I got the migraines, and I was thinking about this, that, and the other, and hang on, it's up pop Shirley and various other people, and I'm thinking, hang on, I have to discover who I am. Everything stopped, and this is the time to sort of say, I do all these things, and my value is not in the fact that I do or don't earn money, whether I've got children at home or not. It's in, you're allowed to feel how you feel, and that gives value to other people as well. So therefore I have value. Exactly. And so what you were saying about learning to do this and to rest and to this and that and the other makes so much difference, but it's still a battle with society in general.
Do you mind if I just jump in there, because
go for it.
I'll forget. I mean, first of all, I agree that this society thing, I think we're all facing that with all of this. I think this is a huge, for me, it's a feminist issue. But I just thought I could add something in, because I think you're right. Of course, you're right, Pamela, that creating value, and I love the answer that you gave, Laura, about where that value comes from, not what you do, but who you are. But there is something else that might also help, Pamela, to get clearer on your own value and who you are, is to create what I describe as at least one, to begin with, because we always start small, a non-negotiable in your day that is just for you, which doesn't negate what you do for other people, but it's important to start informing your mind, you know, and as Laura probably puts it, from your heart, I guess, what you like doing. And that might, to begin with, you might come up with a bit of a blank, going, well, I don't know, but there will be something, and sometimes it's something as small as 5 minutes in the morning where I simply drink my coffee and look out of the window and listen to the birds. But it needs to be the rest of your day that is for everybody else revolves around that, rather than that being squeezed into the gaps that are fictitious and don't actually exist in your day if you don't make that the priority. Does that make sense? And is it helpful?
It is helpful. It's yeah, and it's so easy to squeeze that bit out.
Yes. Yes, I'll do it later. I'll do it after this. I'll do it when I've done that.
Yeah.
I think it becomes like it's like, first of all, it's a bit of conditioning. I think women generally are conditioned, and it was certainly true for me, to be the helper, to be the doer for others, and that you're not important in some way. And that isn't, I don't think that's a deliberate, well, sometimes it is maybe, but I don't think for me it was a deliberate thing. But it was just, that's how we were in our family. Women would do for others. It's important that we do for others. And then by default, you're always at the bottom. But you can still be the doer and the helper and the giver to others. But you can do that from a stronger place, or place of more power, when you do it to yourself, with yourself first. And it's hard to do that, and it's hard to start doing that, and then to keep doing that repeatedly every day, over and over. And I love it, Shirley, that you said start small, because why I think that's important as well is that sometimes you can be like, I want to change my life, I'm going to do that, I'm going to start running 10 miles a day, and then you don't do it once, and then you're like, oh no, I'm never going to do it again. If you maybe were to start running 100 meters a day, and then building 200 meters a day, and then 3 and 4 and whatever, that's just an example. If you don't like running, don't worry, I'm with you. I don't like running either, but that was just an example. But if you start small, you're much more likely to create amazing habits that you can build on and grow from there. So I loved what you said there too.
Yeah, and also what that does when you start small is it prevents the primitive fear-based part of your brain from kicking in and objecting, which it will do if you try to get it to do something big. It will go, no, you can't do that, it's not safe, you better not do that, it'll all go wrong. But when you start small, it's very non-threatening. It will stay calm. You'll go, okay, oh, just 5 minutes, oh, all right, you can do that.
Yeah, that's it, 100%, because your primitive part of your brain is like, danger, you never do this normally.
Yeah, what are you thinking? What were you thinking? Get back in the house.
Yeah, I love that.
We're looking good for times. Pam, I'm sorry, I'm thinking that we might suddenly get a note that comes up and says you have 5 minutes left, which we haven't got yet, but I just want to warn you in case suddenly it all goes dead, in which case it's not me deliberately cutting everyone off, it's the technology it's cut us off. But we seem good at the moment. I mean, is there something, Pamela, that, and please tell me if I'm putting you on the spot, that springs to mind that maybe there's a tiny thing that you might do for yourself that you keep putting off or not doing?
It's, for me, the doing things for myself, it's seeing that I've actually increase my creativity stuff that's just for me. But on the other hand, one of the things I've been doing is crochet, and I found a Facebook page that said random acts of kindness crochet, and I've made some worry worms. Hang on, I'll show you.
Oh, nice.
I turned it off because obviously it's
let's see what
a worry worm.
So sweet. How can you put your fingers through it?
No, it's literally, it's just the eyes come off. I'll have to put it back on again. Never mind. It's just because you can hold it.
Oh.
The Facebook page, it was set up by a young girl who's only 22, actually, as a mental health thing. And she was, she made a thing of crocheting flowers. She was going to do 100 a day for 100 days, and she puts them in little bags with a label on them. I've printed off some labels from her Facebook page. So it's not that you don't necessarily give it to somebody you know, you just put them around and people will pick them up. So this one says, a little something to brighten your day, sending this pocket hug your way, keep it close, warm and snug in case you feel you need a hug. So nobody knows where it's come from, and I thought that gives me the excuse to do this, but now I've got to put them in a little bag and put them. But part of the reason I've done a worry worm is because my husband's a teacher in senior school, and the kids and the teachers are in a state of, some of them are in real states of high anxiety at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I can make a few of these and he can perhaps take them in and leave them in the staff room and people can pick them up.
Oh, that's lovely. And so is it the crocheting? The crocheting part is for you, and then the giving the worry worms to someone else is for someone else.
Yeah.
And so that then sounds like that's really linked to, you know, your values as well, because not only is it important to you to do something for yourself now, and you've identified that, but one of your highest values sounds to me like it's looking after and helping other people.
Yes. Yeah. Without the pressure of you have to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's vital. I love what you found on Facebook. It's a thing called, there was a documentary that was on BBC, I think, that was about this. I'd never heard of it until recently. And it's called craftivism, what you were describing, and people using all different kinds of crafts to do exactly that kind of thing, to post. There's a woman that creates little pairs of knickers and puts them in women's loos, and it's to I think it's to raise funds for raise awareness for, I can't even remember now, but there's a really core, see, I've failed in remembering the core element. This is typical of me. Never start a story, Shelley, if you don't know where the end is. But anyway, it raises awareness.
There's hope for all of us if you're doing it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. Flying the flag. Suiting popular.
Good life.
Yeah. So yes, crochet, knitting, sewing, cross stitching. I love it, love it, love it. So if you're on Instagram as well, look up craftivism, and because that might inspire you with other things.
And I love it.
Another community there as well.
Well, it's like I've got into drawing because I don't know whether you've heard of this author, Rob Biddulph. He writes and illustrates children's books. Somebody at the start of COVID put up like a timetable for kids because they were at home, schools were closed, and he was doing something called Draw with Rob. He was doing on Tuesday and Thursday. He would put up these videos, and he would start with, most people think they can't draw, but that's not so. He goes, I draw, you draw, pause me, draw, unpause me, I'll do it, then you draw, and all this kind of thing. So it was all cartoony, but I got into drawing with him. Not everything he did, but I drew with him. And I posted all my pictures, and you sort of think, and the amount of people who commented, and I thought, oh, maybe I can draw after all. And then I went and did other things and so on. And I'm sort of thinking, if it makes people smile, then, and it keeps me happy, it's just nice.
Yeah. I love, Laura, that you highlighted the link with values and doing what you like, because it is important that you still, that it's you what you enjoy with, it matters to you first. So that even if the ability to share it with others because that was nice didn't exist, that you might still do it. And you might not, because you might go, actually that takes the fun out of it for me. But always make sure there's a non-negotiable in your day that is pleasurable for you. Anyway, I'm mindful of time. I'm delighted that the technology is just about held up. So Laura,
sorry about my issues with my end, but hopefully it's been okay once I've put you on my phone.
You've managed to keep it together, which is great. So do you want to leave us with something that you think would be helpful for us to take away? You've given us the breathing.
I suppose what I'd like to just bring in now, and just because I mentioned it a moment ago, about values, and that is you'll always find a way for prioritizing anything that's linked to your values. And I only really learned what my highest values were around about this time last year, actually. It was Dr. John D. Martini where I got this little nugget from. But anyway, I did his values factor test and worked out what my highest values were, and they are connecting with others, exploring both learning and physically in the world, when COVID doesn't happen, and whole body health, holistic health, if you want to put it that way. But so when I'm doing anything now, if the things that I do are linked to those highest values, I know that I'm going to prioritize them, because you always prioritize everything that's linked to your highest values. And at the same time, if you have to do something that you don't really want to do, if there's a way that you can find a way to link it to one of your highest values, then that might give you a bit more of the oomph to give you a bit of motivation to do it. So yeah, if that sounds like it's speaking your lingo, then I would definitely encourage you to everyone to sit and think what they enjoy doing most and what their highest values might be. I've only got 3, you might have 5, or I'll probably say 4 or 5 is the maximum, but yeah. Is that helpful? Is that good?
Yeah, always. We can always learn more. And I think, I'm not the first person to have said this, and that's the whole point, is even if we have heard something that any of us have said before, it's not about the message, because nobody's really saying anything new ever.
No, yeah.
It's the messenger. It's when it's just suddenly hearing something you've heard before, and you hear it in a different way, and finally you go, oh goodness, that makes sense now. So thank you. And I'm going to for those of you that are watching on the replay, please comment anything that is you'd like to comment, and put replay, although I'll probably know because I know who's here. Duh. Yes, I think I'll work that one out. Good one, Shelley. Anyway, I want to say thank you, Laura, to you for spending your time with us, and thank you, Pam, for joining us, being such an amazing part of this informality. And I'll be taking part in your group. Do you want to share what your group is?
Yes. No, Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to say again, thank you so much for inviting me as well. It's been lovely to talk. I think you and I have a lot of synergy. We've already spoken about that in the work that we do with women. So I love to speak to other women who help women in a similar way to me. But yes, you're coming into my group on Friday for Apple Waffles. I do a lunchtime live every Friday in my group, which is Hysterectomy Healing with Laura Applewhite. And that is a group, it's a community that I'm growing for women at any stage of their hysterectomy if they need help and support. And what I'm building and growing here is a community of loving, heart-centered women who want to help themselves, help each other, and help me. It's just a lovely little loving circle. So yeah, I do Apple Waffles every Friday at 1. And why that's called Apple Waffles is because my nickname is Apples because of my surname, and I tend to waffle a bit, as you've probably discovered today. So yeah, so I have Apple Waffles at 1, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to you coming in and chatting with me on that as well, Shirley.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I love the name Apple Waffles. I think it's gorgeous. It's much more inviting than a Menopause Anxiety Cafe, really, isn't it? I mean, rather be going for Apple Waffles, wouldn't you?
I don't know. I liked the fact that it was a cafe. I was like, oh, do you know, I could have brought a cup of coffee along with me, and then we could have just...
me too, yeah. Anyway, I stole it from the Online Menopause Centre, because I guested on, they have a menopause cafe, and I was a guest on their cafe, and I thought, well, I better just change it slightly, so I called mine the Menopause Anxiety Cafe, which, yeah, it sounds like you're going to come here and get anxious, but
no, it hasn't been about that.
Anyway, thank you so much to both of you, and as I say, anyone that watches a replay and wants to ask a question of me or of Laura, then drop it in the comments, and one of us will respond. All right.
Yeah, lovely, and thanks for coming as well. Really nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the technologist is just beginning to give out. So with that, that's obviously the universe telling us to stop. Have a brilliant rest of the day, everybody, and I'll catch you next week. I will have a new guest, but I'm not quite sure who that will be just now. Surprise. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.